Welcome to the Discourse. My apologies, we are late. We had some technical difficulties. As always, the Discourse is our weekly news show here at the NYU Game Center, the game design department at New York University. Each week, Professors Frank Lance and Naomi Clark talk about game industry news and give us their scorching hot takes. We're late, but we're here. Take it away, Frank and Naomi. I don't think my audio is working. 2 seconds. Oh, God. No mic. 1 second. I need to. Choose.
Because you have to
Okay, we
become
got
an
audio.
instrument. Like you can't use the parts of your brain that are interpreting language. Language flows through you. It must be an amazing experience. It's an incredible skill.
Center Night Cart Services, everyone. You've seen it here in action.
Yep, they're the best. I mean, literally the best. How we sound? How's the sound, chat?
Yeah, let us know. Like somebody
Let
tell
us
us
know in the chat
we
how it
actually
sounds.
we actually come on. All
Yeah.
right, hey, it's working. Yeah, we've got audio.
Yay!
All right, let's jump into it. We have a bunch of links and things piled up from the last couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, we had. By the
contributors.
way, we have such a great crowd of people submitting links and ideas for stories. We love it. Please keep them coming. Tweet at us, however you want to get us news to report on. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Agreed. All right, should we just toss the first link right up there and see what we've got?
Yep. This one comes to us from Maddie, right? Game Center faculty member, and she's
another new console. Yeah.
The console wars I was going to say they keep heating up, but quite the opposite.
Right. I never thought we would see the day when we have like a brand new console and it actually makes things colder. Like, last week we were talking about how exciting it is that the Dreamcast has been updated for 2020 and watching Xbox's smoke or vape. And now, I don't even know, like this console must be hot somewhere, right? Is it like a refrigerator? It's like really hot on one side, but it keeps beers cool on the other side?
Yeah, that's how refrigeration works.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I guess that makes so, but then it's also hot, presumably because there's a chip somewhere. I guess I'm assuming this is all solid state or something. I guess it runs like a pre-selected set of games. Like you can't add new games to this. It's a little bit like, like those little Nintendo novelty mini consoles, right? It's just plays games for you. It's half koozie, half projector, half console.
It is, and it's all viral marketing, and we are the dupes who, by talking about it, we're just playing the role we were meant to play. So let's move on. Just don't buy Budweiser.
Don't buy Budweiser.
Buy a local brew.
This stuff, I don't believe this stuff really helps beer sales anyway, right? Like I'm actually kind of grateful for these things. This is some Budweiser marketing executive managed to convince his crowd at Budweiser that this was worth dropping some ad dollars on, and it produced this thing. I don't think it's not really probably helping Budweiser's bottom line, but it is creating a weird secondary market where people are buying and selling this thing for like thousands of dollars. So whatever. That's
fine. So congrats to that advertising creative who came up with this idea.
Yeah, good job. Good job. Stupid ideas. Good. Worth it. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is a big story, right? And it's been reported in The Verge and a bunch of other places. Starting in January, the App Store is only going to take a 15% cut instead of a 30% cut. Apple's basically cut their own paycheck in half at least for 98% of the developers on the App Store. The top 2%, which make more than $1 million in revenue per year, will still be giving 30%. So this is an interesting move. What's your analysis, Frank?
It's good, right? Yeah. This is just straight up good for game developers. And is this the direct result of the Epic battle?
That's the big question, right? Like, how much does Tim Sweeney get to take credit for this?
I'm willing to give Tim Sweeney a significant amount of credit for this. I mean, it seems
I am
logical.
too, actually. Yeah, so right, like, why would Apple do this otherwise? Like, out of the goodness of their hearts? It's not really in character for them.
Maybe this is just an example of the system, as rickety as it is, as janky as it is. This sometimes works. People say, "Hey, you're charging too much," and they're like, "Yeah, okay, I guess we'll charge a little less."
They say, "Hey," by throwing around like incredibly expensive lawsuits and paying lawyers lots of money, right? Like that's the apparatus by which this operates. Yeah, it's not exactly what. Yeah,
it's similar to a big mega corporate, giant scale version of the thing you do when you just nudge someone in the ribs and say, "Hey, actually, there's a line
right
here."
Like actually, could you give me a little bit more space? Right.
Yeah, there's a line. Why don't you, I'm next in line, you get behind me. And then people are like, "Oh, okay, I didn't right. I was overstepping my bounds." And
right. So here's what I think is interesting here. And I would love to know if anybody knows what Tim Sweeney's reaction to this was. I haven't had a chance to look it up. Gemstones is saying, like, did Tim Sweeney pivot? What Apple did was pay credence to Epic's like ethical complaint of like, "Hey, you're squeezing developers too much. This isn't cool. You have a monopoly. You're taking advantage of it," right? So Apple was like, "Sure, we'll give most developers a break, and you, Epic, and the other sort of like, big companies, no break for you," right? So like Epic is not affected by this. And so their lawsuit is, the fact that their complaint, their legal complaint, is not affected by this at all, right? Because still, if they want to have Fortnite on the Apple's App Store, they have to pay 30%. So of course, Apple isn't just going to roll over for Tim Sweeney or the big ones, but they are basically being like, "You think we're bad guys? Okay, let us show you how magnanimous we can be."
Which is, I mean, again, this is how a janky system can sometimes work. Like, no one is acting in a way that is genuinely driven by principle, right? Everyone involved has complicated motivations, right? Tim Sweeney presumably isn't primarily motivated by some credence, about the moral. Right.
It would be weird for his company to spend huge amounts of legal dollars otherwise, right?
But he pays lip service to morality in order to achieve his more local goals. And then Apple calls his bluff, and they are also not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But this is one of the ways in which morality works. Like, it is in some ways a charade that no one truly, genuinely is motivated by, but by making references to it and paying lip service to it, we force ourselves to improve our behavior in various ways. And it's kind of, it sometimes works.
But Chad is pointing out that the crux here is really, like, what is Apple worried about? Is it the Epic lawsuit? Well, I think the Epic lawsuit has generated a lot of light and attention for Apple's business practices. And what they really should be afraid of is antitrust measures taken by governments, right? And so I don't really know, like, does this work on a government regulator to be like, "Oh, well, they might be a monopoly, but they're taking half the cut that they were before"? Like, that doesn't seem like it would hold any water, does it? Right? Like, why would the government regulator care?
Before you get dragged into court to have to defend yourself against an antitrust suit, that happens as the result of a groundswell of bad feeling that people have.
Right.
That's the theory, right? Is that your reputation is a thing that is nebulous, but then leads ineffably to concrete situations that you want to avoid. So you pay attention to your reputation, not because it's going to have a direct impact on some antitrust suit, but because it's one of the ambiguous steps that leads you to getting slammed with an antitrust suit.
Right. So they might be able to look a little bit more like they're good guys. But the central complaint about Apple being a monopoly is more that they're shutting out competition, right? Not from Epic, but from other stores that could exist, or that they're like, making it impossible for some apps to even exist on iOS because they're controlling the marketplace so tightly, and they won't let Paolo Pedercini criticize them on their own store and stuff like that, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like, yeah, this is great. Good job, Apple. This is good for a lot of small developers, but it doesn't mean that you're suddenly not a villain anymore, right? It's like,
yeah, but this is the thing for me, is the story of everything being reduced to a myth about heroes and villains is a very shallow way to understand the world, right? That if you want to understand the world in order to make it better, you have to first put aside the kind of childish fairy tales but
isn't this exactly
apply to every situation?
Isn't this exactly a situation? No, but this is where the opposite has happened. Apple has been motivated into changing something about its behavior because they were being painted as a villain.
It's true. There is a role for fairy tales, right? There is a role for morals.
And we can't get rid of them anyway. We can't make the fairy tales go away.
I don't want them to go away. I love fairy tales, but you should have the ability to move in and out of fairy tale mode. Right. Look at a situation where you want to make some genuine improvement in the world and understand what's happening there and all of its complexity, which means being able to put down the bedtime book and actually look at the world, right? Most of the time, our view of the world is hidden by the fairy tales that we're applying to it. Like, oh, Tim Sweeney is a terrible villain. It's like, no, it's the dude. Right? The people at Apple are just people. They're just people. And then there's this apparatus called a corporation. Then there are these things called laws. Then there's this institution, and it's like, and then there's conventions, and then there's, norms. And it's like a very, very complicated overall system. So this is what I believe, game designers and game players, this should be the attitude that we bring to these situations, not.
I totally agree. And my solution is to move between one oversimplification and another. That's like my current feeling about it, in part because being like, oh wow, everything is really complicated is a form of paralysis often, right? It's like to just be like, wow, there's just a lot going on here. Like that, then what do you do, right? Like you have to focus in, you have to abstract in order to make some kind of operative gameplay, right? To be like, okay,
you can try things without a grand theory. This is what game designers understand, is that no matter how complicated your system is, you can put it on the table and run it through iterations and see what happens.
Exactly.
That's much harder to do in the real world, obviously, but it's an attitude that we should try to bring to the real world when we can.
Right. So my feeling is that Apple is still having a negative influence on the marketplace for games and mobile apps, right? And in that sense, they're a pernicious force, and they should try and clean up their act somehow. Whether they can do that while also maximizing their shareholder profits, I'm not really sure. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's so hard to picture a world without Apple and imagine, is this a better world? Is it a worse world? We can clearly say it's a mixed bag, Apple. I'm not a huge fan of Apple.
I can easily picture a world where Apple is motivated to improve its reputation further by not being so ridiculously draconian, and not by actively trying to force other competing applications and stuff out of the ecosystem, right? They're
a little bit like maybe we're living in that world a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe. That's why this is interesting. But see, they were pushed to try and to not actually clean up the antitrust stuff, right? But to clean up something that's right next to it. And that, I think, is what's interesting about what's going on. But let's keep on moving. I feel like we might circle back to this topic eventually. Oh, here's something that ties in with a story from previous week about coins, right? Remember we were talking about these challenge coins and achievement coins?
Yeah. So the thing is, this is a coin that you get if you're one of the the top players at some kind
35
speed run competition. The point, I think the interesting point here, so this was sent in by Aaron Friedman, thank you. The point here is that these are not challenge coins.
Right.
And the difference is, I think it's interesting to think about the difference. The difference is, a challenge coin is something that you carry with you secretly because you are a member of a community. And
right.
what people do,
like anybody who's gone through something can can have a challenge.
When they demand of someone else who's a member of that community to produce their challenge coin is, hey, we're just like giving the secret handshake of everyone who's a part of the. So if everyone who did this speed run competition got one of these coins, and then you had to produce it like in a certain amount of time, that would make it a challenge coin. But
right. The challenge coins are not about glory, right? Whereas this is absolutely about glory. And so it's really a trophy that looks like a coin. And it's like, should we not make trophies look like coins so that we don't run into the semantic confusion?
I guess it's just a reference to the coins in.
I guess that's probably you're probably right. But the coins are weirdly the least glorious thing about Mario, right? Like I guess maybe if it was a red coin or a blue coin, but a yellow coin, those are just like bog standard coins, right?
All right, what's the next one?
Let's keep on going.
Announced their nominations.
Oh, yeah, this is mostly boring. Here's the challenge.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, like what are the interesting things in here? Yeah, what's the question?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is this? What is the Game Awards? Did I fall asleep and miss? Do we now have an awards show that we didn't have before that we pay attention to?
It's been around for a while now. It's it's kind of an outgrowth of the Spike Video Game Awards, if you remember that.
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, but the Game Awards have been around for 5 or 6 years now. And they basically started up after the Spike Awards disappeared. But it's Jeff Keighley. It's the same guy, Jeff Keighley's awards show. And it's, just one of these things that's trying to be the big award show for games. And certainly they have like a bunch of big AAA, like obvious, like usual suspects up there. It's Final Fantasy Remake, Ghosts of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2. Hades being the smallest one on there, but clearly like the big indie darling of the year, right? So, yeah, I don't know.
Is it online voting?
I think that there is a awards jury of some sort. I'm not totally. Or no, wait. There is voting, right? So you can register and vote, but I don't know if it's purely based on voting. I think there are a bunch of experts that jury it. Oh wait, here it is. Winners are determined by a blended vote. 90%. Yeah, it's 90% the jury and 10% social media.
Someone in chat says there's a 1-0 Point Never fighting game, which I am surprised by.
Yeah, this is the interesting picks in the Game Awards are all in the specific genre nominations, right? Because that's where they kick it to some jury members who are like specialists in some area. And so if you go to Impact Games, there's actually, I want to give a shout out to Laura Dreamville and her little studio in Ireland that like there's like a unusual little indie game down there in under Impact. Now I'm spacing out on the name of it. It's not a very good shout out, but
it's a whisper out.
Yes, but it's actually a game that I first ran into at a maze, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's part of the Game Awards, right? So like that's says something about the gamut of game festivals. There it is, If Found. That's what it's called. If Found.
It's nice looking.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. It's really nice, like narrative mechanic.
So, Naomi, as cultural gatekeepers for games, and as people who care about who think about the relationship of games as a form of pop culture to culture at large, what is their contribution? Can they be part of the conversation that's happening in culture in the way that film and literature and some other forms do? I think we can both agree that awards are stupid and we shouldn't have them. Like maybe that's the way that
they're terrible. Almost everyone I know kind of agrees that award shows are terrible. But the difference is whether people consider them to be a necessary evil, right?
And Hollywood needs to create drama at the end of the year, it turns to games. It turns to a contest. It's like, that's how we're going to like produce the glamour and drama and excitement that we need to culminate the year. That's our bread and butter. We're living in that world. We don't need imagine if it was a contest. No.
So what if imagine if games at the end of the year to generate excitement instead became a different medium entirely, right? Like what if we did that too? Like what if we became like a lovely music video? Like should we just jump to that link?
It would be more appropriate for us to just have something that is like a film.
Yeah, something that's like, let's chill out for a little bit. But what do you think, Logan? You have that link. It's like the third from the bottom. Yeah. So here's like our cute video for the day. I think we're not going to play the music so that we don't get like a copyright strike. But yeah, so like when I first saw this, I saw this being talked about on a couple news outlets. I was like, oh man, is this like a music video version of Cory Archangel? It's just a bunch of art from video games. And it starts off with these sort of retro Usual Suspects, although that was Atari's Adventure at the beginning, slightly more unusual choice. But then actually, if you keep watching this music video, it goes to some sort of unexpected places. And yeah, like that's like Shadow. What's that game? Shadow Forge or something like that. Yeah, so there's some like slightly more unusual picks in here. Shadowgate, that's right. Thank you, Tim Kelp in chat. But then it keeps on going and it goes all the way up to, well, I don't know. I don't even want to spoil it, right? So there's like Mega Man and Sonic and stuff like that in here. It kind of goes throughout the ages. And the song is kind of nice and melancholy as well. It's all made in paper, by the way. Super Mario World, like a slightly more unusual choice there than Super Mario Brothers. Ghosts and Goblins, right? But then eventually, there you go. Classic ones to punch out. And we've got like Shadow of the Colossus ends up being in here. Some Metal Gear Solid scenes, and then even all the way up to I'm sorry, you're right. The Super Mario Brothers 2, thank you for pointing it out. I get confused sometimes because I played the Japanese version. All the way to Bob As You is like near the end of this things. And so there's like an interesting kind of, I don't know, fandom happening here, right? Like the collaboration between a musician and an animator here is certainly of people who are steeped in video game culture. But also, yeah, I don't know. It's nice to see this stuff being appreciated by people who are really good at what they do in a completely different cultural form. There's our Animal Crossing for the week.
And The Sims.
Yeah, The Sims. Cuphead. There's Braid.
The Witness.
The Witness.
Limbo.
Yeah, Inside. No. Yeah, that one's a Hollow Knight, right? Hollow Knight.
Steven Sausage Roll.
Steven Sausage Roll.
All the classics.
That one's Grease.
Celeste.
Yeah, Celeste. There we go. Let's see if we can just say all of them wrong. All right. So I don't know. Recommended, right? So yeah, maybe we should just have just a moment like that.
Wasn't that better than a dumb awards show?
we don't need an awards show. We should just like something like that should happen every year, and then you should just celebrate everybody who's in the video and be like, yeah, these are all great games. Good job, everybody.
It's just weird too because the season, it like reinforces the seasonal nature of games in a way that doesn't quite make sense. Games are not things that happen comfortably on the time scale of a year. Some of them are, and many of them aren't. And so fitting them into this thing of like a movie is something you go to and for 2 hours, and then of course you watch 10, 20, 30 of them in a year. Makes sense. Games don't really comfortably fit in that thing. It really reinforces all of the preconceptions of games that I think are unnecessarily constraining.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and so I don't know. Is there an alternate way to reach the functional purposes of award show, which is to generate a lot of buzz. That's like all they're supposed to be doing for like a creative community, right?
Maybe we have enough buzz. I think the job of an awards show is attempting to generate prestige.
Right.
And I think this
slightly different.
Whatever this is called, the Axe Body Spray Awards or whatever, I think this is failing to do that because I don't think anyone cares about it, and it's kind of dorky. So, you know, 2 thumbs down.
Agreed.
Yeah. Prestige. Let's look at the next article, which is the one about the yeah. Look at this. Ooh, the good stuff.
Oh man,
art, Call of Duty, the Washington Post. It's all coming together, Naomi.
Wait, and so this is not even in the Washington Post's video game vertical, right? That's what's interesting here. This is on their op-ed page, and I saw a lot of people. I only took time to skim through this editorial, but from what I understand, this is a bad take, or like now the whole like video games are art. Did you know that kind of line, that rallying cry, is being wielded maybe in the cause of like actually Call of Duty is a great a patriotic work of art or something. I'm not exactly sure.
I think Zachney's got it right here, and it's not about this person's so I guess Ronald Reagan is in Call of Duty, whatever. It's a story. Right. It's not about whether you like Ronald Reagan or you have some revisionist historical, project this article is dumb, D-U-M, dumb, regardless of the kind of political framing of it, because the essence of this article is like, look, we all know what art is. Art is when you pretend to be someone else and you see the world through the eyes of someone else, and
right, like Edvard Munch.
Yeah, it's a super simple, it's a dumb argument. We all agree it's a dumb argument to begin with. We all know the right way to avoid the finger trap of this problem, which is to just stop using the word art, which is toxically ambiguous, right? So when people use art, it's a kind of a Mott and Bailey thing where in one sense they are talking about the large scale category of creative works of culture that are expressive and meaningful and beautiful in certain ways. But in another sense, in their head, they're picturing the Mona Lisa. They're picturing a rectangle with a frame hanging up in a museum. They're picturing fine art of a certain kind. And so their brain is just caught like the donkey, between these two piles of rancid hay, and they can't escape. So you just think, no, artist is like Justin Bieber, right? When we talk about music, right, we talk about artists like Kanye West and Justin Bieber. Like that's the sense in which, like, pop music, no one has this problem when it comes to pop music because we've comfortably slipped into the category. We just use the word in its sense to mean it's a creative form that's expressive and meaningful and beautiful, that it's not productive and utilitarian, it's aesthetic and all of these other things. And so we're comfortable. We talk about Radiohead and Dolly Parton and
there's no need. It's skip right past it.
Yeah. And it's like, and it has nothing to do with any whether or not they have some particular quality, some magical beings, that we can point to and elucidate. No, they're all in this category that we just use this word for. It's fine, and some of it's good and some of it's bad, and so this whole thing is a non-starter. As soon as you get out of the fine art confusion of thinking about Mona Lisa and you just start thinking about the latest Lana Del Rey single.
Yeah, no, agreed. And the what was Zachney's take here was that this is just being deployed purely for provocation, right? To be like, well, I think Call of Duty is art. Let me tell you what, right?
Well, in that case, point to this guy, I guess, because
we ended up talking about it. Here we are. We're
and the Spike Body Spray Awards and Ronald Reagan revisionism. Somehow we've channeled our huge influence towards a bunch of things that don't need more attention.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. The only thing that's interesting to me about this is what it says about old definitions of art, right? But like, maybe those don't need more airtime either. But I'm generally like the idea of that there was this definition of like, well, art cannot be interactive, right? That's what I loved about Roger Ebert's weird hill that he wanted to defend, right? Like it can't be open to change, right? I'm sort of like, ooh, that's an interesting, weird idea.
Fine. I mean, again, I think music as if music becomes your go-to reference point, all of these problems pretty much go away. Because in music, some of us sometimes learn an instrument. And then we get a piece of sheet music and we study it and we try to get good at it. And
or we sing along, or we do karaoke with it.
Or we do karaoke, right? And all of these things are participatory in ways that blur the line between audience and performer, between composer and
right. Yeah, because it's a perform kind of thing.
We already have a great reference point for all of the ambiguities and all of the complexities of an art form that doesn't
the potential for commercialism, the potential for parasociality, whatever.
Hang on your wall that you can't buy for $20 million, right? I mean, we already know what that looks like because we have Lana Del Rey and Justin Bieber.
And I know what art is. Chris Bell is providing a great example of it in chat. It's when he moved his dorm room into the gallery and let people go through his stuff and play his games. Now that's definitely art.
Yeah. That is, thank you, Chris.
No question. What we need is some things that are just unambiguously art, where there's just like everyone agrees, like a painting. All right, let's keep on going on to the next one. I don't even know.
Well, where we're contractually obligated.
Yeah, we have to talk about Stadia. We have to complain about things.
So welcome to the Stadia corner, where we're going to talk about Stadia.
Right. So we're talking about Apple again, right? Because this is genuinely weird. I'm genuinely like, what is happening now with this stuff? Because Apple has sort of issued a decree saying you guys cannot have your cloud gaming apps on our devices, or if you do, you have to submit each game that you're going to sell, which is like hundreds and hundreds of games in these catalogs, even for Stadia, which is the worst one. But this is really also about xCloud and about NVIDIA's service, right? And so, like, they're basically saying, yeah, you can put an app on our store, but we're going to make it a horrible pain in the neck for you. And the response now from both Microsoft and Google has been, well, yeah, we're just going to do an end run around your silly restriction. And it's like such an obvious end run. I'm like, what's happening here?
It's interesting because this is another move in this very complicated ecosystem that in which we're talking about the influence of Apple, the role of Apple, their status vis-a-vis antitrust questions. Yep. Well, here, like by being kind of thorny and prickly bastards, they are maybe helping, develop the opposition, which is to force these larger competitors not to cooperate with them, but to discover other platforms outside of the Apple.
But the other platforms are literally, this is what I don't understand, and Salty Horse is getting at it in chat. I don't understand. Like they're basically saying, well, the app we're going to put on your app store is just a web browser, and then that web browser is going to run Stadia. Like what? For one thing, like can't Apple just block that too? And
will they?
Yeah, well, will they? Right? I guess that's the question. It's like, is this brinksmanship that we're watching here? Like, I don't even know.
Oh, some real Stadia hate going on in the chat. Chat, this is our chance to try. First of all, this is going to be the first chance anyone has to actually try Stadia, because literally no one bought the hardware version. So let's check it out. Maybe it's good. Let's keep an open mind.
Look, you guys, if we keep hating on Stadia, then eventually Google will literally just give it away for free because
they assumed it was free.
They're giving it away for free with other things now, right? So now, if you agree, if you buy your copy of Cyberpunk 2077, which I guess lots of people are going to buy. Who am I kidding? I'm probably going to buy it too, if only because the first game I ever worked on was a Cyberpunk 2020 game. But but if you buy it and you play it on Stadia, if you buy it for Stadia, you get a free Stadia setup. That's how desperate they are at this point. They're just like trying to to push it out the door. But yeah, but this weird Apple thing is definitely also affecting GeForce Live and Microsoft xCloud, every cloud gaming platform out there. So it's about more than just Stadia, right? Stadia is just the easy punching bag.
It's a battle of the cloud platforms. Too bad none of them are viable yet, but we'll see what happens when the dust settles or floats up into the sky.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just find out. Nobody's actually able to figure out whether these things are actually worthwhile. Like, no journalists have really told us whether they're worthwhile, because every journalist has had this weird feeling of like, well, I guess it's cool that I can just whip out my phone and play Assassin's Creed Odyssey on my phone while I'm on the subway. It's like what? Like, how are we supposed to understand whether that's actually a worthwhile thing?
In my mind, you can use a heuristic, which is the cooler sounding something is, the less likely it is to be that cool because of reversion to the mean. So I would say cloud gaming is not at all cool sounding. There's nothing about it that makes it seem great. And therefore, maybe it's a lot better than we think. And then we'll eventually just be the
possible. Right. Like if I showed you this and I was like, did you know, like, you could play games, you don't have to have a mouse to click things. You just touch it with your finger.
Yeah, that doesn't sound particularly good.
It doesn't sound that cool, but it's like
the way people play games, right? So that's exactly might be like that. It's just a thing that is intrinsically good versus like ARGs or VR, which sound so great,
but really cool.
They aren't that great. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be unfortunately right about that. Now, notice, like, touch screens, that's actually not something that necessarily as developers we're super excited about, right? Like, oh, I really want to develop my game for both mouse and touch screen. No, the developers were just like, this is just a pain in the ass. And like, that's, I think, how most people feel about cloud gaming too, right? Like having
the amount of people who play Fortnite on their phones is really surprising to me.
Oh, no, it's like,
just say that.
Look, I just got notified by somebody who made a card game based on Sissy Fight that, like, Sissy Fight is not playable on a small phone, right? Like, you can play it on a tablet, but it doesn't work well on a phone. And I'm like, oh man, everybody wants to play it on a phone now. Like, we didn't really anticipate this back when we ported it to HTML5 like 6 years ago.
Where does one go these days to play Sissy Fight? Just out of curiosity. If I want
Sissyfight.com.
Sissyfight.com. All right.
Yeah. But you kind of have to, it's a weird ghost town. Like, you need at least 3 or 4 people to play it, right? So getting together a group is the hard part. It's just like any, online game where the community is a little bit thin. So you really have to go to the Facebook group for Sissy Fight, join that Facebook group, and then like get people to play with you.
I think I'm banned from Facebook. I will give you can I give you some unsolicited and unwelcome?
Yeah, sure. I love it. I love getting that kind of.
You should add MMR to Sissy Fight. I know it sounds like counterintuitive because you have a problem finding enough people. So with MMR, it's like you're actually doing matchmaking. You have to sort people. But I just think it's the perfect kind of game for a ladder. Because it's short rounds that you play over and over again. You do get better at the game over time. There's all kinds of like weird king-making dynamics, but there's also I just think adding MMR would be funny. First of all,
we used to have a ladder. We used to have a system like that. It's just that all the games are pickup games, right? Like we would have to organize tournaments, and we did that for a little while, but that was back when we had like.
You're too polite to say it. Ranjit is lazy. I get it. He's forever. He doesn't want to add.
If you're listening out there, Ranjit,
come on. Ranjit, if you're watching,
you don't need this. You don't need this.
It's tippity typey go. Let's go. Tippity type. Come on, put some code in there. MMR. Let's do it.
Just keep making Twitter bots, Ranjit. Pentametron. That's where it's at, and all of its children.
That's the best. By the way, no joke. Pentametron is the best Twitter bot. It shocks me how good it is. I think it must be cheating. So it's so good.
Keep going.
Jeff Engelstein tells us that football agents are trying to bribe developers to boost their ratings in FIFA, which is literally the least surprising thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's yeah, of course. It's amazing. It's kind of like, yes, that's naturally agents would be doing this. Like, what else are agents going to do? Of course.
You had me at
Right. So so that's the world we live in. there's not even really that much more to say about it, right?
No,
like
it's just a great, it's a great thing.
What I'm looking forward to seeing is if agents try to bribe people to get their clients into Blazeball. Please make a Blazeball player based on my clients. Yeah.
The library is now, the New York library system is now allowing you to check out board games, and if you go to the full list, you can see some of the games that they're allowing you to check out. It's things like Monopoly. Have you heard of Monopoly? Who doesn't already own a copy of Monopoly? Like, who?
I do not own a copy of Monopoly.
I know, but you don't want. It's not like anyone has a hard time getting their hands on a copy of Monopoly.
Yeah, I wonder if that's still true.
Of good games and terrible games, and it's just kind of a random assortment of popular games, and it seems like a good thing. Who doesn't want to like touch a thing that a lot of other people have touched, and you know,
yeah, it's a great time to launch this. Like, you can get someone else's copy. You can get someone else's copy of Pandemic that they already.
Yeah, you can check out Pandemic,
and then you can
Pandemic by getting.
You can find out how Pandemic works, both in the board game world and by contracting a virus from playing with someone else's copy. Oh, wow. Terraforming Mars. They've got some big games in here, like Cosmic Encounters. Those pieces are going to. So, what I don't understand is how are the pieces not going to all go missing, right? Like, that just seems extremely likely. Yeah. Oh, wait, that's in the FAQ. So, basically, if you find missing pieces, you're supposed to tell the librarian there are some pieces missing. Well, yeah. And then the big question is, how are they going to actually replace those pieces? Because I know from experience, it's not easy to either provide or get missing pieces for a board game.
But nonetheless, it is it's good, and we're happy that the New York Public Library is doing this.
Yeah, it actually is quite nice.
Up. 2 thumbs up.
Keep doing this. Hopefully, it'll persist after the pandemic.
What is this Microsoft story about Sony and Microsoft?
Yeah,
explain this one to me.
So this one is interesting. It's so the head of Xbox like made a point of saying, you know what I think is one of the worst things about the industry, and like, you know, to be clear, right? Like, we can come up with a lot of bad things about the game industry, and what he picked was the tribalism. That was his pick, and he used that word, right? Like, between Sony fans and Microsoft fans, right? Yeah. Or Nintendo fans. I guess, do Nintendo fans get involved in these mix-ups? Maybe they do, right?
Well, it's Nintendo versus Sega was the original.
That was the original one, right?
Yeah.
Right. So one view on this is what Matthew Robo just said in chat, right? That like, well, Xbox didn't do very well in the last round, so maybe like he's just saying, hey, stop beating up on us, guys.
People who are losing the culture war that are most adamantly against the culture war.
Right. But, you know, I feel like 10 years ago, I don't feel like we would have seen somebody whose job is basically to be the head of product for Microsoft saying brand loyalty just really gets out of control sometimes.
It's a weird move. It's unexpected.
Yeah, it is. Well, and so, yeah, partially it's maybe because they're losing, but yeah, to actually literally say brand loyalty can become toxic. I see it as a bellwether, right? That even up at these like whatever senior vice president levels, there are decision makers, product leads, basically being like, you know what? Maybe the fans have gone too far now. Maybe we've pumped this hype engine so much and like tried to infiltrate people's identities with their like consumer preferences to the degree that it takes over their psychology. Maybe we should stop that. And I don't know if that became conventional wisdom. That would probably be a good thing. Just like, you know, Apple backing off of its cut is probably a good thing.
I mean, this Phil Spencer fella makes some good points, and I don't disagree. Right. I think, yeah, you see in this weird consumer lock-in where first you buy an expensive device, and then you are motivated to celebrate it and to again see everything through this kind of weird moral lens of us versus them and good and bad, and it's just it's more
that then they turn on Microsoft, right? Then they're like, this isn't everything that I dreamed it would be, right? Like that's the problem that companies are really having now, is that their own fans are like just getting way, way too excited, like expectations through the roof, and then just frenzying, right? Yeah. So yeah, okay, great. Like fan-driven consumer capitalism, is it burning itself out? Oh, please, I would love that. That's all I want for Christmas. Is for that to burn out. But I kind of agree with what was said in chat. You know, Nintendo's approach was always to sort of like stay out of this and be like, yeah, we're over here doing our own thing. You know, Blue Oceans, Iwata kind of stuff.
But their fans are just as bad. I mean, I don't think this is something that was produced, you know, from whole cloth by advertising. Sure. I think the thing that emerged as the result of, you know, this expensive hobby becoming, you know, within the context of consumer capitalism, and then they benefit
egged on
and the flames of it. It's a human problem, and
absolutely. But what do you do about that? Right.
Maybe just speaking as a human and saying it's gross, and I don't want to be in a community that is so marred by this terrible, childish, immature, ignorant attitude. So hey guys, let's cut it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really in favor, and you know, I say this to students sometimes too. It's like if somebody is so excited about your work that, you know, like that part is great. But then if they feel some level of entitlement about that, right, where they're like, well, I need it to be this way, or I need it to be this, right? Like that, I don't know. I think creators and business owners, there is a little bit of an ecosystem management problem here, where the best thing might often to be saying, well, okay, maybe you shouldn't buy this then. Like, you know, I'm sorry, like we can't be everything to you. We can't do, you know, everything you want. Like, yeah, maybe try something else. Like, we don't necessarily need you as a customer. Like, thank you. If you're this upset about it, like, please take your business elsewhere.
You see this a lot on Instagram and other social media platforms, where there are content producers that are tangential to the culture wars, and they have like a mixed audience. But in the run up to the most recent election, sort of started to like declare themselves as being anti-Trump and shed a lot of their audience, but like were willing to do that because at a certain point they just didn't want to. So they're kind of acting against their narrow best interests. But again, people do act in ways that are against their narrow best interests when they're motivated by deeper principles or.
And I think there is, like, we can sense, like, we have enough awareness of being like, actually, maybe we're shitting in the pool here, right? Or I'm sorry, we're eating too much grass off the common.
Is there a rule against that?
Well, the problem is there's not, but you can still rely on maybe people to be like, maybe this is a bad move for everybody, right?
Yeah, don't shit in the pool and don't swim in the toilet. Quite honestly, it's bad. It works both ways, is what I'm saying. It just
right. So lessons learned, maybe at least until the next round of product managers arrives and is incentivized to like boost their sales to never before. We'll just see what happens at that point.
2 minutes left and 2 stories that we could touch on. One is the No Man's Sky rave planet sent in by Jack Schlesinger, which is, I guess, some No Man's Sky. Something's happening in No Man's Sky, and
yeah, that's great. I mean, this is the Galactic Hub, the group that like kind of runs a lot of No Man's Sky now, which is a little bit controversial. But they're doing cool art, music projects on planets. That's great.
Good stuff, No Man's Sky. And then Jeff, this one's interesting. Netflix has settled its Bandersnatch lawsuit against the IP holders for Choose Your Own Adventure. So they were sued by the people who own the Choose Your Own Adventure brand, when apparently you're not allowed to use Choose Your Own Adventure
they backed down. They paid off the Choose Your Own Adventure people. And so I don't know, this is kind of a bummer in some ways, because the Choose Your Own Adventure, the rights holders haven't actually been doing anything with it for a long time. They sort of like just sue people and get money out of them, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not, like we could probably come up with a better generic term for this.
Oh, you don't think choose your own adventure? It's just it just rolls off the tongue. It's just the obvious.
Terrible. It's terrible. Like everyone.
It's a little bit of nostalgic thing that's stuck in your head. Just stop saying it. I mean, these people are obviously trolls, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, they are. I don't say it anymore. I
haven't read the article, Naomi.
Yeah, so, there's not that much in there. It's not a big deal. I'd say choice adventure or choice narrative or
but who cares? Just stop saying it. I know you love. What are we? Ready Player 3? We need to be choose your own adventure. It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to space.
Oh boy.
Howdy doody. It's like let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we could all stop relying on nostalgia as like the thing that's going to squeeze like a tiny bit more sales money out of people. Like it's not,
Yeah, it's fine. So Netflix, good job. Just don't.
Yeah.
And Bandersnatch. Right. I heard Bandersnatch was surprisingly successful.
Yeah, I think it actually did do pretty well. I mean, why wouldn't it? It's a novelty. Yeah. It had interactivity. There's nothing else like it on Netflix.
Like, it wasn't great, but it was kind of good. I actually liked the production values. I liked the setting. I liked the scene. It had a couple of nice moments in it.
It's just a predictable meta narrative, right? That was the sort of like
the longer it went. The more meta it became, the less interesting it became.
It's like
to the core story, which was interesting and good, and instead it became this like, ooh,
Well, it's like it has to get past the point where people are like, what would be cool? A meta narrative. Like after we go past that point, then maybe some interesting stories will occur.
Anything else, or should we should just wrap it up right there, right on
let's
time?
Let's wrap it up. Yeah, let's wrap it up there.
We're ending on time. That's how we do it.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week then. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Naomi. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, Mirabai. And thanks to you, chat. You make it all possible.
Yeah, big props to Logan for being the hero of today's technical problems, and to Mirabai of Steno Night Cart Services.
Yeah, Mirabai.
All right. Thank you so much for watching and tuning into the Discourse. Once again, your news hosts have been Naomi Clark and Frank Lance. I was your behind-the-scenes operator, Claire. Graphics are by Winnie Song, and captioning was by Mirabai Knight of Steno Night Cart Services. As a reminder, please join us for our last Fall 2020 lecture series event with Game Center faculty Maddie Bryce for a talk about games history as divination and what that suggests for the future of games, community, and culture. That's happening this Thursday, December 3rd at 7 p.m. right here on twitch.tv/NYU Game Center. We have one more announcement. I'm getting a message in the Zoom chat. I'll bring it back to Naomi and Frank.
One last thing, for those of you who are part of the NYU Game Center community, we are about to open submissions to our winter show, which is going to be happening on Thursday, December 17th. So just a couple weeks away. And if you are working on a game right now, you can submit your game, and we're going to be having some like private inside the community playing of games on Discord and in our DIY multiplayer space that some of you might have seen. It'll be like a little winter holiday party, and it may or may not conclude with some rounds of a popular multiplayer game in which people pretend to be working together on a space station. You heard it here first unofficially. All right, so please stay tuned. If you're interested in that, check out the upcoming announcements in email and on Slack on how to submit and join the winter show.
No Tandon students. Sorry, Matthew. We love you though.
All right. Thanks again for watching. That's all for now. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.